Look at this mess. You've ruined everything.
The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor of the Whitmore Grand Ballroom, and every one of the 300 guests turned to look at the man in the ill-fitting black vest. "Pick it up," said Bradley Ashworth, adjusting his cufflinks. "That's what you're paid for, isn't it?" The waiter, a thin man in his 50s with tired eyes and steady hands, knelt without a word. His name was Walter Coburn, and for the last 4 years, no one at the Ashworth Foundation Gala had bothered to learn it. Pathetic, Bradley muttered to the woman beside him, loud enough to carry. "My father hires people like this because it's cheaper than dignity." Laughter rippled through the nearest tables. Walter's jaw tightened just slightly. He had heard worse. He had survived worse. 3 years ago, Walter Coburn had owned a small logistics company. 19 employees, a warehouse off Route 9, and a wife named Marion who used to say he was the calmest man in any storm. He believed her, back then, because the storms had always been small ones. Then came the storm that wasn't. A supplier collapsed. A bank called in a loan early. Marion got sick the same winter the company did, and Walter spent every dollar he had left choosing her over the business. He never regretted it, not once. But by the time she was gone, so was everything else, the warehouse, the trucks, the 19 jobs, the name on the door. People who lose everything twice tend to go one of two ways. Some grow hard. Walter grew quiet instead. He took the waiter job at the Ashworth Foundation not out of desperation, but because it was the only door in this city that's still open for a man his age with a folded resume and no explanations. He never told anyone what he used to be. He simply showed up, poured the wine, and let people believe whatever they wanted about him. Dignity, he'd learned, didn't need an audience. It only needed to survive the night. What none of them knew was that Walter had chosen this particular job 11 months ago on purpose, and not one person in that ballroom could have guessed why. It started small. A stack of donor receipts left open on a desk. He was clearing late one night. Numbers that didn't match the totals printed in the Foundation's own newsletter. Walter almost dismissed it. Then, 2 weeks later, he watched the head accountant, a nervous man named Preston Hale, delete an entire folder from a shared drive at 11 at night, glancing at the door twice while he did it. Walter started staying later than his shift required. He learned which drawer wasn't locked, which login the night shift IT tech never bothered to log out of. What he found didn't add up to a full picture. Not yet. Wire transfers routed through an account with no Foundation name attached. A donor list quietly shrinking every quarter while the public numbers grew. Enough to know something was wrong. Not enough to know how deep it went or who else was involved. That was the problem. Walter didn't know who he could trust. Charles Ashworth ran the Foundation's board. Bradley ran its public face. Preston Hale ran the books. Any one of them could be the reason, or none of them could be. And if Walter moved too soon, whatever he had would simply disappear, along with his job, his credibility, and any chance of the truth ever surfacing at all. So he waited. He watched. He kept a folder of his own, thin and unmarked, hidden behind a stack of tablecloths in the service closet down the hall. And tonight, he had checked on it twice already, the way a man checks on something he isn't ready to explain. 11 months earlier, in a courthouse 3 miles from where Walter now stood balancing a serving tray, a different room had gone just as silent. Walter had sat in a witness chair for 6 hours, answering questions about a company his testimony would help save. He hadn't noticed a man in the back row that day. Gray suit, no notes, listening without once looking away. That man had noticed him. Daniel Reyes never forgot faces that told the truth under pressure. It was rare enough to be memorable. He looked into who Walter Coburn was afterward. The lost business, the buried wife, the quiet refusal to take a settlement in exchange for silence, and he filed the name away the way he filed away anything worth remembering. Now, across the Whitmore Grand Ballroom, a side door opened. A tall man in that same plain gray suit stepped in quietly. The kind of suit that didn't announce money because it didn't need to. Nobody recognized him yet. His name was Daniel Reyes. He was a billionaire CEO, and the very man Bradley's family had spent the last 6 months quietly begging for a rescue deal. Daniel watched Bradley kick a shard of glass toward Walter's shoe. "Faster," Bradley said. "Some of us have real jobs to get back to." Walter's hand paused over the dustpan for exactly 1 second. Then he kept working. He glanced, just once, toward the service hallway, toward the folder no one else knew existed. Daniel crossed the ballroom slowly, and something in the way of the crowd parted for him, without knowing why, made a few people stop talking. "Bradley," Daniel said, his voice even. "I think that's enough." Bradley turned, irritation flashing before recognition hit. "Mr. Reyes, I didn't know you'd be attending tonight." His tone shifted instantly, oiled and eager. "I hope the Foundation's proposal reached your desk. We'd love your firm's backing for the expansion." "It reached my desk," Daniel said. "I read it twice." He looked down at Walter, who had finally stood, dustpan in hand, refusing to meet anyone's eyes out of old habit rather than shame. "Walter," Daniel said, "it's been a while." The room went silent enough to hear the string quartet falter mid-note. Bradley blinked. "You know him?" "I know him," Daniel said, "because 11 months ago, this man testified for 6 hours in a fraud investigation that saved 400 jobs at a company your father tried to gut for parts. He gave up a comfortable severance to do it. A phone buzzed somewhere near the head table. Then another. People were already searching the name. That's ancient history," Bradley said, forcing a laugh that didn't land. "It has nothing to do with tonight, doesn't it?" Daniel said. "Then explain why Walter's badge still opens a finance office door on the 3rd floor. Explain why he's clocked more hours in that building after midnight than half your accounting team." Charles Ashworth, Bradley's father, went very still near the head table. It was the stillness of a man who had just realized the ground beneath him was no longer solid. "He's a waiter," Bradley snapped, his voice rising, cracking at the edges. "You expect this entire room to believe him over my father? Over a family that has run this foundation for 20 years. "No, Bradley," Daniel said quietly. "I expect this room to believe the numbers." He turned toward Walter. "Show them what you told me you found." Walter reached into his vest pocket and drew out a single folded page. Not the whole folder, just enough. His hands, steady all evening under far worse pressure, didn't shake now either. 2 years of donor funds, Walter said, his voice carrying to every corner of the silent ballroom. Moved through an account that does exist on any filing this foundation has ever submitted. I didn't come here tonight to serve champagne, Mr. Ashworth. I came here to watch who reacted when the number was said out loud. Every phone in the room seemed to rise at once, cameras turning toward the head table. Charles's face had gone the color of old paper. "We'll discuss this privately," he said, too fast. "No," Daniel said. "You'll discuss it with the board in the morning. Tonight, you'll apologize to the man you just humiliated in front of everyone who trusted you with their money." Bradley didn't move, didn't speak. The silence around him had turned into a verdict. Walter straightened his vest, the same vest he'd worn all evening, and for the first time all night, he allowed himself something close to a smile. They thought they were humiliating a waiter. They never realized they were humiliating the man who had come to expose them. He walked out through the same side door he'd entered by, the folded page still in his hand. Nobody in that ballroom would ever look at a waiter the same way again.
If you love mind-bending mysteries, shocking plot twists, hidden secrets, and unforgettable stories, hit that subscribe button and join Kahani World. A new mystery is waiting for you in every video, if you're brave enough to watch.